right, good morning, everyone. My name is Erik Montague, and I'm the Deputy Town Manager here at the Town of Marana. And really, on behalf of the town, I'd like to extend those that are here this morning a warm welcome, literally. It's getting warm as we speak, but we appreciate all of those that made it here today. I have the distinct privilege of introducing really a number of key speakers this morning that have a wealth of knowledge and background and experience, not only in the water production and delivery business, but also on the regulatory side that works to help ensure that the water that is delivered is safe for those in our respective communities. We're also particularly proud to be able to hold this event here in the town of Marana at one of our two state-of-the-art water treatment facilities that the town built some time ago in response to the challenges that we had and continue to have related to this compound with PFAS. This particular construction was really allowed to happen through the courage of council at the time that authorized and allowed staff to bring this project forward. And it also really symbolizes and really demonstrates this council's commitment to ensuring that the water that we're providing is safe for all of those within our community. We recognize that the town of Marana is one of many communities that are impacted by these compounds, and that throughout the region and within the state as well as throughout the nation, a number of water providers are going to now be challenged to be able to meet the new requirements in providing those treatment facilities that may be required to treat that water for time to come. That will require us to continue to work cooperatively with outside agencies to help not identify some of the challenges related to funding and project delivery. And we're very appreciative of the initial outreach and the original outreach and what we've seen thus far from the administration related to initial funding for some of these projects. And especially with WIFA, those monies being funneled through WIFA and their receptivity to some of our applications for some of the projects that we will need in the future. But we are well positioned to meet this going forward. With that, I would like to just let you know a couple of housekeeping things. I'll be introducing each speaker after the last speaker. For those in the media or those that are inclined, we'll be conducting tours. On the back table, there is a one-page sheet with bios of the speakers for those that need it. And with that, I would like to introduce Martha Guzman. She's the Regional Administrator for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for the Pacific Southwest region, which includes Arizona and California, Hawaii, Nevada, and the Pacific Territories. Guzman is the first Latina to serve as Regional Administrator. Prior to her being Regional Administrator, she served in very similar capacities in the state of California. With that, I'll have Martha come up and speak.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. It's really an honor to be here. My name is Martha Guzman, Regional Administrator for US EPA. But it's wonderful to be here in the town of Marana with all of these problem solvers. I think we're going to talk a lot about numbers, but ultimately it takes leadership and it takes people committed to making sure that their constituents have safe drinking water. And of course, we know, particularly here in the Southwest, every drop of water counts, and making more resources available for that is even more important. But today we're talking a little bit more about PFAS. As you know, a couple weeks ago, EPA finalized the PFAS drinking water standards, the maximum contaminant levels. This was driven by a tremendous amount of health research and economics about how to make these systems work and what the balance was. And that was what derived the levels that were set for the MCL. But just to remind ourselves about why the leadership here has taken on these types of projects is to prevent significant health effects. Things like liver cancers, kidney cancers, heart attacks, strokes, and actually one of the unique things about PFAS is it reduces our immunity system. So many reasons that we're driving this, but ultimately is the public health of all of our constituents, nationally and here in Arizona. Obviously, a big part of these solutions take money, and we're celebrating another mark for both the congressional leadership that we have here in Arizona, both on the Senate and the House side, helped lead the support of the bipartisan infrastructure law that dedicated $9 billion to funding infrastructure like the drinking water systems here today. Here, as you can see here, in 2021, the town of Marana, with support of $16.1 million from the federal government, was able to leverage that funding for the creation of this system. But overall, and I'm sure you'll hear from WIFA today, they have received $326 million for water infrastructure projects here in Arizona, including $115 million of that from the bipartisan infrastructure law. And one piece of that was $44 million, a lot of numbers, that were targeted for emerging contaminants like PFAS. So I'll let Arizona talk a little bit more about those funds that were made possible here today. And I also want to recognize that I was here just a few months ago celebrating City of Tucson, the Tucson water system that received $30 million from the bipartisan infrastructure law. But as I mentioned, it takes a tremendous amount of leadership across all forms of government. And one particular thing I wanted to also highlight that's really unique here in the Tucson area is the partnership that they have with the tribal nations. One example of this is the partnership with the Tohono O'odham Nation, where they have preventatively worked with the nation to do some groundwater sampling, to track where the plume is going, to ensure that if those systems are impacted, they would have some preventative measures in place. And that kind of foresight on working with their neighbors is really incredible. So that's another area where we've been able to support this work with a small grant to the nation of $50,000. Again, it just takes all elements of government. As you know, the history here in this area is really been one of dealing with chronic contamination from different sources. I just want to mention another big solution piece that the administration did a week ago on Superfund. One of the things we did was we listed PFAS as a hazardous waste, which means there's no more ambiguity about whether or not this is an issue that the Superfund sites need to be treated with. So that could be a whole nother precedent to talk about the importance of that rule that was passed within CERCLA. But most of all, I just want to continue to stress how important this entire area of Pima County, the leadership that you'll hear from today, and the city of Tucson really leading the national, and the city of Marana, leading all of us nationally to get ahead of what we knew was coming. But there is just a tremendous amount of opportunity here, both with improving the health of the local constituents and also the water supply of the Southwest. So it's an honor for me to be here with all of you and your leadership. I thank you very much. And I look forward to coming back for the next ribbon cutting. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Next speaking is Mr. Mayor Ed Honey. Mayor Ed Honey is the third generation of 5-generation family in Marana, long-serving council member over 37 years. The town of Marana was founded. One of the key principles or tenets had to do with concerns over water. That continues then and it continues today. Mr. Ed Honey.
Thank you, Erik. I want to thank Administrator Guzman for coming to Marana for this event. My family started the first water company in Marana. I'm not going to tell you it was 1951, but it was. And I was born, but I wasn't very old. But, you know, the town of Marana, talking about PFAS, when this became an issue in 2017, it was not controlled by EPA or anybody at that time. And we had a couple bigger systems that were testing above 70 parts per billion, which at that time was kind of an unofficial place to start treating water. So without being ordered to by anybody, we decided to build these two plants. This plant cost $8 million, and there's one a mile down the road here that cost another $8 million. for a community our size, that was a really big deal. But we were so concerned about our citizens and our community and our ignorance of what the issue was going to be, we decided to spend the money. As Administrator Guzman said, we went to WIFA and we said, hey, we need to build these 2 water plants. And they said, well, what's the design? And we said, well, we don't know because there's no national design for plants to treat for PFAS and 1,4-dioxins that we treated for at the time as well. So we had to kind of design the plant or hire people to design the plant before we could build it. So these beautiful plants treat PFAS and 1,4-dioxin, which may end up on the list eventually anyway. And they're both kind of caused by the same issue. We pledge to continue to build more plants. We have 3 more on the horizon. Even though Marana is a smaller community of a little over 60,000, we have 7 independent water systems because we're so large geographically. And if we build 3 more plants, it's my understanding now those plants could be up to $12 million a piece. So it's going to be a real issue. You were talking about the grants and stuff. We may be coming to see you. But we're really pleased that everybody's here today and to see these plants. And I can tell you one thing, if there was an issue with water in these systems a few years ago, it's now the purest water in the county. So that's what we've been able to do. So thank you very much for coming. We pledge to continue to work with the city of Tucson and all of our neighbors to make sure that everybody has the cleanest and purest potable water we can find. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next, although not speaking, I would like to recognize from the Tohono O'odham Nation, Mr. Celso Villegas, who is their Water Resources Director. Obviously, they are one of the impacted communities within the overall region. Next, I would like to bring forward Karen Peters. She's the Cabinet Executive Officer and Executive Deputy Director of the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. Karen Peters is an Arizona lawyer, veteran public manager, most recently serving as Deputy City Manager for the City of Phoenix. She has over 30 years of experience in environmental and water law and policy, and even helped shape and write some of the Arizona laws related to water. With that, I'd like to introduce Karen Peters.
Hi, good morning. I am Karen Peters, the CEO of the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, and I'm really pleased to be here today to help celebrate all of the federal investment that has stepped in to make sure that Arizona residents and residents around the country are protected against exposure to this very difficult suite of synthetic chemicals that have very distinct and deleterious effects on human health. Here in Arizona, we've been working together with EPA and water providers to address the issues that we saw coming. We're very pleased that EPA finalized the Safe Drinking Water Act standard for a suite of these chemicals and are working together with water utilities to be ready. We have been working to be ready. So public water systems under the new rule have 3 years to complete initial monitoring for these compounds, after which they must report to the public what the levels are detected in their drinking water. For cases where monitoring shows PFAS levels higher than standards, water systems must then implement effective solutions to meet the standards within 5 years. So fortunately, ADEQ has been proactive in addressing PFAS contamination in Arizona since 2018 and has launched a comprehensive statewide effort to test public water systems for 29 different types of PFAS. The test results have been published in a detailed interactive map that identifies where PFAS has been detected enabling targeted mitigation efforts. And you can find that interactive map on our website. I urge you to go and take a look, azdeq.gov, and partake of that information. So as of today, more than 80% of Arizona's small public water systems subject to the PFAS final rule have been tested for PFAS. Approximately 10% of the systems tested to date have found PFAS at levels higher than the new MCL. Many of these systems have already taken actions to reduce customers' PFAS exposure. So to provide support to small water systems and disadvantaged communities that need assistance to address PFAS, ADQ developed and is implementing a statewide drinking water PFAS mitigation plan to ensure safe water for all Arizonans. This plan was made possible by Governor Katie Hobbs and the Arizona legislature investing $5 million of state funding in 2023. This funding will leverage not just the $5 million in state funding with the additional millions of dollars that Martha referenced from the federal bipartisan infrastructure law. I think she said $44 million, which is a little bit of a raise. That's a wonderful thing. ADQ is providing assistance to the communities of Globe and Payson, Arizona, using these dollars, providing PFAS education for drinking water professionals, and conducting hydrogeologic studies in identified areas with high PFAS contamination, including Chino Valley, Payson, Star Valley, and in the vicinity of the Santa Cruz River in Santa Cruz County. So throughout Arizona, ADQ is helping public water systems to be ready and meet this challenge of providing safe drinking water for all of our residents. We will continue to provide guidance and support to Arizona's water providers as they work to do this. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, celebrating establishment of the MCL, celebrating these really important federal investments that help us to keep our residents safe. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Tim Tamir. He's the board member of the Water Infrastructure Authority. He currently serves as Deputy City Manager for the City of Tucson and will be future City Manager for the City of Tucson, and he is the former Water Director. Tim he's a licensed civil engineer and has nearly 3 decades of experience working in the public sector in various industries, including water policy. Tim?
Good morning and thank you. I'm pleased to be here representing the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of Arizona as one of the board members. As Arizona State Revolving Fund, we invest in water and wastewater solutions statewide. And over the last 30 years, we have invested over $3 billion in Arizona's water future, including conservation, augmentation, basic infrastructure, and water quality improvements. We've mentioned last month's announcement of a MCL for PFAS, but I want to acknowledge the fact that you don't announce an MCL and then 30 days later, you're standing in front of a treatment facility. If you didn't have communities like Marana and Tucson that were leaning in, that were leading, that were taking the risk on behalf of their customers and then worrying about the money after they made the right decision. So kudos to Marana and Tucson. Please, a round of applause for them. They did this on their own. Thanks to the historic infusion of funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law, WIFA will provide a minimum of $14.8 million in forgivable principal to projects just like this to address emerging contaminants like PFAS. Some of those funds are being deployed right here in Pima County and in the facility you see nearby. But even outside of those forgivable grants, federal support of the state revolving funds ensures that all of WIFA's financial instruments are available to its customers. We have a lot of tools in the toolbox. Please reach out to us. We can help you do the projects that you need to do for your communities. We appreciate the opportunity to speak today, and also Administrator Guzman, all of your leadership on these issues has been fantastic. The role of EPA has been leading as well. And we're grateful for you being here and for joining us, not just today, but all along the journey. We're also grateful to Senators Sinema and Kelly for the role they played in securing the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law in 2022, which will ensure clean water and drinking water resources are readily available in the communities that need them most. And we are excited about the role that WIFA will continue to play as we help communities across the state meet the challenge of emerging contaminants. And I will also note that already today I've been approached by several of your water leaders about their next grant and the merits of it. So everybody in the Pima County area is in good hands. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Tim. Our next speaker will be John Kamik, current Tucson Water Director for the City of Tucson. In his career spans several decades, obviously with an emphasis on water resource management, utility leadership, and some of the water quality challenges that we faced then and we face now. A lot of Arizona's long-term vision and policy related to sustainable water supplies, water quality, and various principles. He's had a value to be able to shape some of that policy. Kamik is also a member of the executive board for the National Water Reuse Association and former director on the Arizona Water Association board. So I'd like to introduce John Kamik.
Great, thank you, Eric. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank Regional Administrator Guzman and her EPA team for showing up and being here at the Town of Marana with us to celebrate, as well as Karen Peters and the ADEQ group, Arizona WIFA, who we just heard from Tim, as well as the Town of Marana and other utilities like Metro Water that you're going to hear in a moment, and of course, it's also from the Tohono O'odham Nation. I'll try to keep my remarks as brief as possible since we have so many guests here. So the utilities here in southern Arizona are in a unique and vulnerable position. We are water utilities that are absolutely dependent on aquifer systems of the Tucson Basin and the Avra Valley Basin. This part of the country requires a healthy groundwater system since this is the natural infrastructure that we all have to share and protect together. At Tucson Water, we know all too well from our history that the water beneath our feet is always at risk from what is done at the surface. The historic contamination of TCE on the south side of Tucson has created an acute awareness that we all need to have to ensure that the water we are all serving is of the highest standards. We cannot ever have another instance where unknown contaminants migrate their way into our supplies. And that is the challenge we have today in dealing with more recent emerging contaminants like 1,4-dioxane and now PFAS. Tucson Water, Marana Water, with the construction of facilities like the one we're here at today, are not only local leaders in protecting our customers' drinking water supplies, but national leaders in dealing with emerging contaminants. We are all thankful for the support we have received from EPA, ADEQ, and our local officials in understanding the unique challenges those of us within this basin face. The support of EPA funding from the IIJA to communities like ours via AZ WIFA will make this challenge in protecting our drinking water supplies more attainable. Just a few miles from this location, Tucson Water will be constructing a new advanced water treatment facility for emerging contaminants like PFAS and 1,4-dioxane. This will allow Tucson Water to bring approximately 3 million gallons a day of highly treated water back into our drinking water portfolio. The construction of this project is being funded by AZ WIFA at a cost of approximately $33 million. However, through the IIJA EPA support, more than $10 million of that total cost will be covered by forgivable principal. I don't believe it's speculation to say that the water utilities within this basin will always be facing the challenge of groundwater contamination. What I am certain of is that Tucson Water and the other utilities within this basin will continue to monitor and meet the challenges of tomorrow by going above and beyond what is normally expected in an effort to protect all of our water users. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is Joe Olson, General Manager for the Metropolitan Domestic Water Improvement District. Joe is current General Manager for the district and has done so for over 10 years. He currently serves on the Governor Hobbs Water Policy Council, is an Arizona Water Banking Authority Commissioner, sits on multiple other committees and boards. And with that, I'd like to welcome Joe.
Thanks, Eric, for the introduction. As Eric said, I'm Joe Olson, General Manager of the Metropolitan Domestic Water Improvement District, or as we refer to it, just the district. So our district predominantly serves customers at six geographically separated service areas throughout unincorporated Pima County, and we have around 70,000 customers. The reason I mention our population is that while we are the largest WID in Arizona, we are only about 1/10 the size of Tucson Water, which presents challenges on expeditiously funding significant capital initiatives, specifically when it comes to economies of scale for rapidly designing, budgeting, and constructing treatment to address the PFAS compounds. The district has 2 wells where PFAS currently poses a challenge, and they are among our highest producing and most efficient wells. In place of this pumping, we have had to rely on less efficient wells to meet our customers' average daily demand, reducing our overall production resiliency. Given the construction cost of treatment, we would have planned to budget and construct these treatment facilities within the next 2 years. However, thanks to the BIL funding and the partnership and support from WIFA staff, we were able to obtain 100% forgivable principal forgiveness for the construction of GAC treatment at each of these 2 wells to remove PFAS, enabling these treatment facilities to be online 18 months earlier than they otherwise would have been. This not only ensures safe and reliable water for our community, but also helps prevent this contaminant plume from further migrating and impairing other downgradient wells. Since we're also celebrating all the federal and state partnerships today on addressing PFAS and other emerging contaminants, I would also like to applaud the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality on the close partnership we have had with them in this arena. For the past 20 years, we have operated what is known as a Water Quality Assurance Revolving Fund treatment site, otherwise known as a state-operated Superfund program. And this has been on behalf of ADQ at one of our wells. This treatment facility mitigates TCE and PCE plume. However, once this treatment facility was put online, both 1,4-dioxane and PFAS compounds were discovered in the contaminant plume. The challenge was the existing treatment process did not remove both of these constituents. For the past 5 years, we have been closely coordinating with ADQ on the treatment, blending, and other scenarios to mitigate and remediate this plume. As a result, ADQ has funded 100% of the approximate $1.2 million capital cost for an advanced oxidation process treatment facility, as well as covering the annual operating costs to ensure the capture and treatment of these contaminants. The timing of this event could not be more appropriate, as that facility is now constructed, and this week we have begun the formal commissioning process to get that treatment facility online. And that facility operates very similarly to the facility before we stand today, just at a slightly smaller scale. So on behalf of our board of directors, our staff, and our district residents, I would like to thank and express our appreciation to EPA for ensuring the funding for PFAS treatment under the BIL, and that treatment gets into the communities most impacted, to WIFA for closely working with the district to helping us navigate these various funding opportunities, and for ADQ for further helping to ensure safe water for our communities. And Marana for hosting this event at their great treatment facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Our last speaker is Mr. Robert Jaramillo. He's the TIAA Unified Community Advisory Board for the Tucson Citizens Water Advisory Council. Robert Jaramillo is a longtime resident of the Sunnyside School District in Arizona. I've been living there for over 40 years. He's a member of the community, providing various types of community service to make a positive impact in the Tucson community, and I would like to introduce Mr. Robert Jaramillo.
Thank you. What do you say? Better late than never, right? Mayor, I want to thank you for hosting us. Ms. Guzman, thank you for being here representing EPA. I'd like to start with first thanking a few people, starting with Mayor Regina Romero for her initiative and her dedication on this topic that we discussed quite a few years ago. Okay, not only on the topic of PFAS, but PFAS in our area, I'm from the south side. As a kid, I grew up in the south side. I represent the south side as best I can. But TCE is what we had to deal for many years. 1,4-dioxane is another beast that came around in 2002, where EPA called Tucson Water and said, hey, by the way, there's another beast in your water. And now we're having to deal with PFAS. And the initiative that not only this administration has taken is in the proactive stage. So I would like to thank our administration that's in effect now, Congressman Grijalva for his initiative also with pushing the environmental justice for all, HR 2021, a couple of years back and finally got through Congress. And that's what's so frustrating to me. I know we know the damage, we know and have experienced the damage that the chemicals cause, not only by experiences in our families, growing up in the South Side, our classmates, our teachers, our family members, and the list goes on. I often say we're the Camp Lejeune of Arizona. Yeah, but what we're doing here today, this celebration, is a milestone from where we were 50 years ago. Okay, it started with, I'm one of the many spokespersons that have been here. Mr. Grijalva was one of the ground, on the ground running along with a lady by the name of, bear with me. Rosa Agustin. She was probably the primary spokesperson that we had back in the 70s and 80s as I was a high school student back then. But you know what? Like they would say probably here in Marana, she grabbed the bull by the horns and ran with it, okay? And people like her is what encouraged me to come out and speak, not only today, but in our community, because of the cause and effects that water contamination has had in our community in the South Side, but not only here in Arizona, but nationwide, especially with the PFAS contamination that we're having. You know, it's a hard topic to talk about. It's a hard topic of the cost of the cleanup. ADEQ has stepped up to the plate as well, helping out with the funding. EPA has helped out tremendously, and the list goes on. But I don't think this is the end of it, unfortunately. You know, and what's frustrating to me, the ones that should be paying for the cleanup are the responsible parties. Your 3Ms, your DuPont, your Claymores, and the list goes on. Where are they in this whole picture? Where are they? You know, we have the water contamination, but also the health issues that the water contamination has caused to our community in the South Side. And hopefully that you folks never have to deal with it here or anywhere else, because we're still having to deal with it, whether people want to believe it or not. And that's why predominantly I like to speak up about it, because you know what? We're speaking for the people that are no longer with us because of the effect the chemicals had on our health. Okay, I've had to attend quite a few funerals, unfortunately, family members, classmates, co-workers, and the list goes on. So it's a day of celebration here, but it's also the consequences of what the water has caused if it's not cleaned up, contaminants. So thank you for having me, and have a wonderful day, and let's keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jaramillo. That concludes the remarks by the speakers today. For those that are interested, to my left, your right, those interested in a tour will have an opportunity to ask questions and visit the facility and meet individuals for questions, follow-up questions as you see fit. So with that, I'd let you know that the ceremony is complete. Thanks.